Julien is in Paris. Life is good. How is the evening? How are you, Julien?
Good morning, Max. I'm doing great. Looking at your background, I guess I should be the one asking, how is Max doing today?
Well, Max is doing. Max has a story to share. It's not. I don't know if it's a bad story or not. It's definitely a customer experience. It played out over a pretty long period of time. And it's a story of mine. This isn't a mailbag story. And I just thought it'd be interesting to talk through. I have no idea where this is going. We may all go, oh, yeah, so that's how that works. But I think there's probably some things to sort out about it.
Okay.
We bought a television, like a monster television, a great big one in the living, and we have a wall that it fits on. So, and we got it just before the Super Bowl, and without initially knowing it, but doing a little bit of research, found out that's the perfect time to buy a TV. That Super Bowl is a forcing event for people to go, I can't stand this TV, I'm going to buy one. So all the manufacturers, and they've actually gotten to the point now where the new TVs are all introduced like just after the Super Bowl, or maybe they're introduced just before, so the people who want to pay more for the fancy ones can. But the old ones, they use the Super Bowl to kind of clear out all the old stock. So from a pricing standpoint, it's the right time to buy one. Not wisdom on my part, just kind of worked out that way. And this came about, my birthday's in January, and leading up to my birthday, my wife kind of said, we need a new TV. What if I give you a TV for your birthday? And I'm like, okay. So then that started the research phase. And there were, we were looking at a 75-inch TV, which still to me, I'm just kind of like, what? And the price goes down as low as like $700 for one of those. It goes up to $4,000 for one of those. So there's just this incredible range of price and features. And so initially I just, it kind of started as we ought to do this. So I went to Costco, which is, the big box store, and or the big discount store, and they always have a handful of TVs. It's kind of random which ones they have. And they had that one that was $700. And I was like, wow, that picture looks great. And then I looked at the one that was $4,000, and that picture was amazing. And it was life-changing. And it's like, oh, okay. So, all right, you know what? This is overwhelming me. I just got to go home, and I got to do a little research. And then you start getting into OLED versus QLED versus 4K versus H4K versus, I don't even remember all of these things. And then there's backlit, side lit, other lit, and this just vast array of features. And then you start digging in, and it's like half of them are, if you're a serious gamer, you really need this. If you want to watch TV, it makes no difference at all. So the matrix of what do I differentiate on versus what do I care about just got so overwhelmingly complex. I mean, really, this was something I over a period of months, because once I started looking at it and thinking about it, I just, after a while, I just had to go in the corner in the fetal position and go, this is too much. I can't figure out what this is. So then I went to one of the like electronics stores. They got TVs and stereos and gaming and all that stuff. And there were 3 people in the TV section there. And they both ended up pointing me to the 16-year-old girl who was knowledgeable. The other 2, I asked the most basic question, and they looked at me like I had a horn growing out of my head. The woman there, at least she had a sense of things. I had two models I wanted to look at. Both of them showed in stock there. They had neither one, and they had no display of either one. So I had no way to look at the two that I wanted. I was able to find something close so that I could look at some things and kind of get a sense, but it was an absolute wasted trip. Ironically, I went back to the big box store again, and they had most of the stuff I wanted. So I was able to look at a couple of things there. And then I got my wife involved in this because I was drowning. It just, and I compare complex software for a living. I know how to do this stuff. It's not like I don't have any tools for this. And so I looked, so we started digging in and together, and we went back to the big box, and we spent a long time at the big box store. We looked at the $700 one, and then we looked at a couple others, and we really felt like, okay, there is a significant difference between the $700 one and some that are a little over 1,000. So, okay, maybe we should step up to that much and do that. And looked a little more. And then some of the, like, when you went up a step, there were some that were like, oh, this is great, unless it's dark. And we like to watch movies in the dark. And then you can't see anything. It's like, oh, okay, well, you can't see that in the store. So it was all, still pretty confused, but starting to narrow down, starting to get some ideas. And then there's one more store that we found that just sells televisions. And went there, actually called ahead, talked to a guy for a little bit, went in there. And of course, that guy was talking to somebody else. And we ended up talking to some other guy, and he showed us some stuff. And, we kind of, at least we were able to get all the TVs we were interested in a room together and look at them. And you could tell the difference, but then you start getting into, my wife made a point. It's like, we're not going to have the other one next to it when we're home. Are we really going to care? Is it really going to make that much of a difference? And then we went back, and some of the things the guy told us about, this is like this, directly contradicted in the stuff we read. Just, he said it was this, the other said it was that. It was that. So instead of being helpful, all of a sudden that just spun us even more. And finally we went out, and we didn't say it, but I think both my wife and I were, all right, we're just buying one today. Hell or high water, whatever's right, whatever's wrong. We went back to the big box store, spent a lot of time, and really got to a point where, okay, we don't want the lowest one. It would work, it would be fine, but we want something a little different than that. So we're going to step up from there. And we went in and we looked, and we finally figured out the one. And then we went back. So we did that at the big box store. Then we went back to the TV place. And this time, the guy who was with another customer last time, who I talked to on the phone, he was there and he was available. And he really did the work. He, let's look at this one. What do you think? Let's look at that one. Okay, yes, this one is the one that's dark. Let me tell you this. All of a sudden, we got the advice I'd been craving, to just have somebody kind of talk through, well, what about this feature? That those are gaming features. You don't care about that. So we ended up getting one that was, and most importantly for my wife, we got a good deal. It was a couple days before the Super Bowl. The store does this thing. I guess the manufacturers really control the price, because if you look at the ads, they're all the exact same price. But what this store does is they have trade-ins, where you trade in your old TV. And if you don't bring a TV to trade in, somebody brought in two the other day, so it's okay. We don't get, there's no policing of the trade-in. It's just a way for them to offer a lower price. And I guess the manufacturer, they've got some sort of a deal. It was a way they could cheat and get lower prices. So we got the TV, finally had the delivery. I won't get into the installation. It was embarrassing. Got the old one off the wall, no problem. One of our kids helped me. We had to move it up, which meant we had to take the mounting. I won't get into it, and then I'll tell the story. We had to move the mounting bracket up and the drill I had left in the car, so we didn't have any power in the drill, so we were using my wife's father's hand drill to drill the holes. But it worked. We got it up, and it took a couple tries. And once again, I realized that physical things, there's a reason I work in the software industry doing the physical part of installing it. I'm just really lame at it. But now we have a lovely new TV, and we're very happy with it. And it's, it was like a $1,300 TV. And so it was almost twice what the lowest one was, but significantly less than half. And it's got some of the fancier features. And so far, we've been really happy with it. So it's a long buying process. I don't know where the story goes, but I don't know what the story means, but that's the story.
So listening to you, I noted 5 things, which
boy.
By the time I finish covering the first one, I will definitely have forgotten the other 4. That's guaranteed. I'll try my very best to keep on track here. The first thing that you said that I noted is, I compare complex software for a living, so it should not be that difficult. But the thing is, you compare software that you understand very well. You know what are the options on an IVR that do matter. You know which integrations are actually important versus which are the fancy features that really don't have such an impact on for a daily user or for the end customer or whatever it is. You are not yet TV expert, from what I get from your story. And that's probably a big difference.
I would argue my wife became one, but
probably.
I don't think I quite got there.
But that's the big difference. It's not about comparing. It's about knowing what matters. There are so many.
Yeah.
There is so much jargon there. There are so many words, fancy, 4K, H4K, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it's fancy, but truly, do you know what really matters? You probably don't, because you don't know exactly what you need. And that's the first thing. The second thing that I picked is how impressive it is how technology creates the demand more than respond to it. Meaning, I remember 20, 30 years ago playing video games, which were just pixels on a screen. And that was amazing. Right. And you could not imagine how we could ever get any better than this. And today you're watching movies in 3D, not even 3D. 3D is a thing of the 2010 now. We don't even really watch 3D movies anymore in theaters. It's already an old thing. But you have all these new fancy things you could not even imagine. You definitely did not need that 20, 30 years ago. But now you could not imagine going back to what we had. And that's exactly what technology is doing here. You had a TV that was probably good enough because you've been using the same TV for so many years without much of a complaint. But now you see these new TVs and you kind of see what you're missing out on. And you have that. The best example is you go to the store, you watch that $700 TV, which, wow, it's amazing what it does. And that would be definitely good enough. It's much better than what you have until,
exactly.
Here is a 4K TV that's even better, and you could not imagine it. And they're just raising the bar for you to spend more money, which is really something impressive in technology. We build a bunch of stuff you don't necessarily need, but you want them as soon as you know it exists. As long as you don't know it exists, you're very fine with what you already have. That's pretty. Not every industry can benefit from this kind of model. That's a pretty impressive one. Now, because as I predicted, I forgot most of the other points.
2 out of 5 ain't bad.
The biggest one for me here is probably around the journey. Your story is not that different from my baby car seat story.
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
And I think in that specific example, there are 2 things that a good salesman or a good store should be able to do. And in most of the examples you've been giving, they just failed at it. The first thing is, unless you're a TV expert, which most people are not, you have no idea about this jargon. You don't know whether this plug is better than this one, whether 4K is better than HD, whether this is better than that. You have no idea. So there are 2 things they should be able to achieve. The first one is be able to display the product. The store you went to where you managed to sort out 2 TVs you want to see and they don't have it. Well, really, more than stock, display is incredibly important because people get a sense of what they need once they see it. And just giving me a long list, descriptive list of features is pointless for a product you want to experience.
Let me jump in on that for a second, because you've hit on really what made the difference. That last time where the guy was there, what he did a very good job. And the store, what they do is they have the same video running. So, you know, a lot of them, it's like, here's the manufacturer's fancy thing that makes it look really good. And this one's got a football game, and this one's got a wrestling match. And they're, you know, all the images are apples to oranges. What they did at the store is every TV had the same one, and they claimed they were all set to the same. Who knows? But he was able to say, okay, so that's this one. Look at this one. It's next to this one. You know, here's your cheap one. Here's the next step up, and here's the next step up of that. And in some cases, they were right by each other. Some we had to go walk around. So we were really able to. You're right. That ultimately, that was the most important piece of this, was just to look and go, okay, I really do see a difference in this one. And you know, I think my wife had a good point, in which you made, is if we'd bought the cheapest one, we'd have been happy as clams. But seeing the one we got and going, okay, this is brighter, this is clearer, from a side angle, this one works better. You know, with a TV, it's all about looking at it, and the fact that the fact that it was so hard to find a way to look at them really says a lot about, we're moving to an online purchasing where stuff like that just can't be done.
And I'm glad you brought up the fact that some store actually had the good idea of putting the same video everywhere. That reminds me, since we're just a few days or a few weeks ago now, we had International Women's Day. Just reminds me that you still have so many stores that actually, instead of displaying the same picture, make sure you have some K-pop there, probably with Korean Samsung TVs, I guess. I never thought about it. May want to double check, which still makes me wonder, when 2023, we still use the same method as a typical car trade shows, where you need to have sexy booth girls around the car, because you're selling the sexiness of the concept more than the actual product itself. And that seems to be something that still exists. And it's hard to believe it still exists in 2023. But anyway, side note on this. The second point, the second thing they seem to fail at, except for the last one, is when you have a complex product, you need to get away from features and need to start talking about experience. And in order for you to speak about experience, you first need to be a salesman that tries to understand the need, meaning understand who your customer is and what is it going to do with that TV. Because telling me that's a great TV because it has H4K, great, but do I need that? It sounds like your last salesman told you something like, it has all these great features, but you don't care because you're not playing video games. And that's probably where you should start. What are you going to use that TV for? What is the top thing that matter to you? Is it the number of plugs, because you have so many devices to plug on HDMI? Is it the quality? Is it the size? Is it the length of the warranty that sometimes can be very, very useful? What really matters to you? And going through that communication session where you dig into the customer's needs makes it so much easier to sell something afterwards, because you only speak about what matters to that customer instead of trying to fancy sell beautiful features that are probably completely irrelevant.
Yeah, no, that's how it should be.
Exactly. So there are a few things here. There is making sure if you're selling a product that is all about the experience, make sure you give that experience. If it's about display, which typically a TV is all about, make sure you display your TV. Understand the customer's needs. And I find it funny that you were talking about the setup. I was not too sure where you were going to go with that setup thing until you explained that it was about screwing the stuff on the wall and placing the TV on the wall. I remember 30 years ago when you were buying a TV, you had a lengthy setup. setup, but it was not about setting it up on the wall because it was too bulky to go on your wall anyway.
Right.
You would put it on the shelf somewhere. But it was about setting each station, each TV channel one by one.
Yeah.
You may not even have had a TV controller at the time, so it was about turning the right buttons on the TV itself. Nowadays, you just plug it, it's working, but you still have some setup to connect it to your Wi-Fi and potentially put it on your wall. So the whole thing has evolved also quite a bit, and it's good to think about the entire experience all the way until I like stores that even offer to set it up. I haven't bought a TV for a long time, but same thing with washing machines. I tend to go with the store that's telling me, I'm going to install it in your home, even though that's not that complicated. You got a plug to put, you got to put the water in, the pipe out. There might be 4 screws to remove so that the whole thing is working properly. But if they are offering for a cheap price to set it up in my home so that I don't have to carry it myself, that I make sure I don't have to call the after-sales service because it's actually working from the start, this part of the service actually matters. It's not just about the buying experience, it's about getting started as well.
That's a great point. And interestingly, the store we bought from, they deliver, which, those big TVs is actually a really good thing because they don't fit in any kind of car. If you don't have a pickup truck, you're out of luck. But it's a third party to do the actual setup. And it's, I forget, it was like 150, 200. I had a kid who could help. It was a macho thing. It's just like, I'm going to do this. I don't need them for that. So it ended up working, but it was maybe a little more stressful than it should have been.
Maybe it's a wise choice because every time I had to deal with a furniture company that would deliver through a third party, whenever they would install it for me, and I have 2 examples just in this room, they would the entire setup. I would have done it better myself. So it's probably better if they don't do it themselves. And then there was a last point in your story that was very interesting. That store that was taking your old TV, very smart move, because chances are, unless you broke your old TV, but what happens these days is TV lasts forever. I mean, probably less long than they used to 30 years ago, but TVs last forever. So chances are you didn't break your old TV. You just want something more fancy because, hey, you've had this one for 10 years. It's about time you change it. The fact that they take it back is incredibly smart because not only you get a discount, but also what would you have done with your old TV anyway? You would been trying to sell it on Craigslist or trash it altogether?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, we took the TV from the living room, moved it up to our bedroom, but we now have 2 TVs in the bedroom, one of which isn't connected to anything. So yeah, you're right. We've got a TV that's just kind of sitting there unloved. Poor thing.
And that's also part of the entire experience, right? It's not just buying, it's not just using, it's not just setting it up, but it's thinking about the entire customer journey. Hey, those people probably have another TV. What if I were offering something that makes their life easier? Probably something good for me to resell or deal with a manufacturer or whatever it is. The whole experience is taken into account, and that becomes very smart and very enjoyable from a customer perspective.
Yeah, that's true.
So there were a few good nuggets in that story. I think that was a great one. Thank you for sharing.
Good. Yeah, thanks. I wouldn't say it was a good experience. I think the day we went to buy, we finally had a good experience. But it's meaty. It's good in terms of having stuff to talk about, and that's what we want here. So
exactly. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Max. I'll have to be creative to come up with something next week. I have a couple of stories that are not mine, so it's great for the mailbag. And hopefully I'll be able to share one of those with you next week.
Sounds great. Thanks, Julien.
Thank you, Max. Bye.
Take care. Bye.